Fucking try to get warm, man. Fucking fear gone. So Peter Breslin, thanks for coming on the podcast. Obviously it's the first time for us that we've done it in the video side, but it's a wee bit of a different day, so if you want to introduce yourself but also tell us where we are.
Yeah. Thanks Gordon, I appreciate that, and appreciate your time to do this podcast today. As you say, it's a one-off, it's unique. We're sitting here today on the TS Queen Mary, a ship that was built in Denny's in 1933. So myself, I'm Peter Breslin, the Managing Director of Marine Projects Scotland and also the Managing Director of Govan Dry Dock Limited. So we have secured the contract to refurbish the TS Queen Mary and return it to service. It's an amazing journey. You know, the ship plied its trade on the Clyde up and around the west coast of Scotland since 1933, and then, you know, the history's been well documented. 2016, she was down in London. She was in the process. She was going to be scrapped, and there was a charity formed, Friends of the TS Queen Mary. They rescued her and brought her back up to Scotland, and she was only ever going to be a static attraction. So there was a number of projects and jobs to be done on the ship to enable that to happen. And then the Royal Patron came along. We managed to secure a Royal Patron, and her wish, Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, was that the ship should sail again. So I've been involved with the ship since 2016, helped raise some funds whilst I was at Calmac to help bring the ship back.
How did that come about for you?
Well, I was working with Calmac. I was the interim technical director, and the chief exec, Martin Dorchester, who had been involved in the charity to the degree, had said, would I help support, and right, because of my technical knowledge and technical ability. So I met up with the charity and a very, very good working relationship with them, and been involved with the charity since 2016. So we've done a lot of work, done a lot of voluntary work on the ship. Everything I've done from sort of 2016 to, you know, June 2023 was all voluntary. That was my donation to TS Queen Mary. Right. At that point in time, after we had done reverse engineering to see whether it was viable and feasible for the ship to return to service, my company, Marine Projects Scotland, were then awarded the contract to do, one, the project management on it, and two, to supply the trades groups, the labour, bring the subcontractors together, you know, Sea King Electrical, identify contractors for the windows, Sea Glaze, bring them on board, Shield Marine. Just with the contacts I had through my business, my working life, I could bring them to the project and tell them exactly what the output would need to be. And these companies have been great, you know, with us, working with us, great donations. So it's an amazing journey to be on, and to leave a legacy like this ship behind that she's back into service is a great opportunity.
Yeah, without doubt. Well, as you say, it's a journey, so as we normally do, the journey's all about the individual rather than this, but this is just obviously a unique situation. But for me, I'd love to know more about obviously your background. So we've had a good chat. Obviously, you've obviously taken us around and shown us what's to be done and whatnot. But for you, where did it all begin?
Well, it began, you know, my working life. My father was a shipwright. We were living in Ayrshire at the time, so from a young boy I was out helping my dad repair wooden yachts and doing different things. So I was always working, I was always around boats. So I decided at 15 that after my exams in the May I was leaving school. But my parents, you can't leave school unless you've got a job to go to, so that's fine.
You must have had the same mum and dad.
I'm going to go and join the army. No, we're not signing the papers, so you're going to go and get a real job. I was like, are you okay? So I wrote away to a number of companies looking for an apprenticeship. In those days there was quite a few companies. So I got offered two roles. I got offered a role with British Aerospace, who were building Jetstream at the time, and I got offered a role in Troon Shipyard, which was Ferguson Ailsa. It was part of British Shipbuilders. So I went, I met with them. My father, he worked in that yard at the time. And I secured a job. They offered me a position. So I took the job. And I started in August 1993. And I was told that we went to the yard, there was another 7 apprentices, and a minibus would pick us up in the morning and take us up to the British Shipbuilders Training Centre at Govan. That was located in Govan. Right. So a 16-year-old young guy out of Drossen, up to Govan, your eyes are opened right away.
How many buses is that?
What's that?
How many
One
buses?
bus, one minibus.
was it?
One minibus,
Oh, right,
dedicated minibus took us up every day. So went to the training centre there, and we attended Annisland College. So that was for the duration of your apprenticeship. However, 1 year before my apprenticeship was due to finish, British shipbuilders went into decline and decided they would close the yard at Troon. The Ferguson Hoosier yard, that would be closed. So I was given the opportunity to go and work with Ferguson's or Govan, Yarrows, Swan Hunter. I said no. I took the opportunity to go and work with a local company in Ardrossan, William McCrindle Engineering. He was building 3 trawlers, building them conventionally. So I went in there.
What do you mean conventionally?
Well, conventionally, in shipbuilding in the sort of late 80s, early 90s, they started building modular construction. It was modules they were building. Whereas at McCrindle's, we laid the keel, we put the side frames up, we put the shell plating on. So I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed doing what I was doing there. But it made it very, very clear that as soon as my apprenticeship was complete, he was going to pay me off. That was the way he done things, which I accepted. So that was a sort of journey that took me into the more engineering side of things, and I was happy to do that. And he was true to his word. They did pay me off when my apprenticeship was over, and that gave me the opportunity to go and work with John Brown Engineering. And from there, I went to night school. After I'd done my City and Guilds, I went to night school, and CAD was just getting introduced at that particular time. Then went to Glasgow Nautical College on a day release basis, whilst I was still working, took a day off my working week to do marine engineering. And then the journey just sort of progressed. Worked, I would say most of my life has been within shipbuilding and ship repair. I took a period of 7 years where I worked in the renewable sector from 2006 to 2013, when the government had an appetite at that particular time. And I was part of the team that delivered the world's first wave energy converter, the world's first commercial tidal turbine, Nova Innovation. They're still operating, very successful company. And also we manufactured the 7 megawatt offshore wind turbine for Samsung that's sitting at Methil. So
just a wee bit then? Just a wee
bit. So I really enjoyed that part, but I was always drawn back into shipbuilding. So it's something that's close to my heart. It's something I've always enjoyed doing, but it's also given me the opportunity to travel around the world and see a lot of lovely places, work in interesting, challenging projects. There's been good and bad. I was working in China as an owner's representative for a new build in China, and working in a shipbuilding facility where I was the only Westerner. It was challenging. But for 2 years, I stuck it out, delivered the project.
What kind of vessel? What was that?
It was just a passenger carrying vessel. Done that, and then from there, was given the opportunity to go and work in Greece for a guy, Peter Nomicus Shipping, on his personal yacht, which was badly damaged. Went from there. I've been in Nigeria.
Is that, as soon as you say badly damaged, is that like an emergency?
It was badly damaged in a storm, and I had to go over there and basically do the repair specification, produce a repair specification, identify the contractors. And this was a yacht that was built in Camper Nicholson's in 1967, and it was a yacht of the year. So you can imagine,
that's nice.
what it was like. So, but I've been.
Have you always done, is most of your career then been passenger-related vessels, or?
No, I've done every type of ship. I always seem to be drawn to the passenger vessels, and I've worked on both sides of the fence. So I've worked in new build, I've worked in ship repair, but I've also had the opportunity to go into vessel management. Whilst I was the interim technical director at CalMac, you're running a fleet of 35 aging vessels. And year on year, the budgets are growing and growing and growing. The refit periods have been extended. That was a very, very challenging job, and the most challenging bit, and I'll be honest, was the fact that it was politicians that were your boss, who don't really have some of them don't have a clue about, how the world works. You've got somebody there that's a transport secretary, but what's he done? So it was challenging. That the bureaucracy was challenging. So I was glad to sort of.
What kind of is there any, like what is most challenging? So obviously I've known a few of the guys that have obviously worked at CalMac yourself. A few of the guys that's obviously still there. But what would you say is the biggest challenge, like, from a technical standpoint?
From a technical standpoint,
dealing with the politicians.
Well, it was the politicians that failed to invest over the years. Really,
Right.
let's be honest, because whilst the ships belong to CMAL, it's the Scottish Government that's funding them.
Yeah.
So the CalMac replacement programme should have started years and years and years ago. But instead of that, they're running vessels now at 34, 35, 40 years old. Getting spares, if you had a breakdown, there was no spare coolers, there was gearbox spares, main engine spares. You couldn't get the spares. So if a ship went down with what could be deemed to be a relatively simple, easy fix, you could be waiting weeks or months, as been demonstrated recently, on spares for propulsion systems. So really, when you've got a transport secretary who is your boss as such, it doesn't work. They don't understand the complexities, they don't understand what's involved in getting a ship, finding a dry dock, getting a ship into it, getting the spares ordered, and the whole bureaucracy about the procurement and how CalMac dry dockings are almost selected by the procurement department, because the procurement department works with the finance department, and yards tender for it. And the procurement department come back and say to you, this particular yard have scored the highest, so they're going to be awarded the contract. And you say a simple thing like, well, do you understand this year both the fins have got to be deployed, the stabiliser fins for overhaul, but if they go to that dock, they can only deploy one fin at a time, then they've got to move it. So why don't we put it in a dry dock where we know we can extend both fins at the one time? And that's where it becomes challenging, that's where it becomes difficult to help people like that understand that, you might have procurement rules, but there's certain procurement conditions that need to be specified, and that at times for me personally was very, very frustrating.
No, I can see what you're saying. You don't, obviously, I've worked with CalMac in the past and do at the moment, and obviously when you're going for the tender, it's the Public Contract Scotland or PCST that you need to go through, and it's all weighted, so I guess it's just, when it's something that's done by the government, it's funded from there, it's something that goes through, but then when it comes to projects like, obviously not this, but what you've dealt with, it's just going to make it more difficult. But in terms of, obviously, before you obviously got to CalMac, so, correct me if I'm wrong, you maybe worked in like 4 or 5 different countries out with Europe. So what can I ask you, like, when you were, so you finished the trawlers, you finished your apprenticeship, you're paid off, and then you're a couple of years in, obviously in the Clyde. Did you have anyone that you spoke to that could tell you what was potentially ahead of you? Would you have ever thought that?
It's always my father, because he was in the shipbuilding and ship repair game. I could always turn to him, but I always sort of made my own path in life. So really, in 1993, it was quite ironic. I'd been working in Scott Lithgow's, and probably it was the last contract in Scott Lithgow's. That was in end of 92 into 93, and it was building the subsea shut-off modules for what would be the Piper Bravo after.
Oh wow, right.
The Piper Alpha. Yeah. So we were building these in Scott Lithgow's, so that contract was coming to an end. And McCrindle, at this point, I was back in favour with him. I'd served my time, I'd been out, I'd found my feet, and he came to me and said, will you work? I've got a pipeline in Dundee, I'd like to go and look after this pipeline job in Dundee. Along Riverside Drive, alongside the airport, a new 42-inch pipeline. And so I went up there and I was working up there with him, which it was a good job, I enjoyed it, good squad of guys. And my father actually said to me, my first son was due to be born in February 1993, and at Christmas my dad said to me, he said, no, about time you took a job at home, your son's, no, a couple of months' time you'll be a father, you can't keep working away, you need to, I suppose you're right. He said, well, there's a job for you down at Troon. I said, right, okay, so what's the job? He said, it's working within the small boats department, as they called it, and that was doing all the refits to the MOD craft. Right. So that was a good job, a good contract, and I got to travel with that as well, because we were travelling throughout the length and breadth of the UK and over to Ireland. And from there, you know, just working in that department, I was given the opportunity to become a project manager for the 2 new build 20-metre coastal training craft, which are now the 1st Patrol Boat Squadron.
Right.
So I was given that opportunity. So I project managed both those 20-metre coastal training craft from, you know, designing right through to build, delivery, and looked after them for 1 year after, which was really, really good. I enjoyed that project immensely, working closely with the MOD. Good project to be involved in. I then went from there sort of back into the ship repair. I was a ship repair project manager. At that time I was involved in a lot with the CalMac ships, but we also built the last ever ship to be built and launched from Troon Shipyard at the time was the Loch Nevis, and I had the pleasure of actually standing on that ship at the bow when it was launched, and that's still in service with CalMac yet. So little things like that make it, you know, they're memories. You go through your life, your working life, your personal life, collecting memories, and I really did enjoy that. So I worked from then, so 93, son was born, daughter was born in 95, and I stayed there, and at the time it was an Australian, Greg Copley, who owned the yard, and he sold it to Cathelco. And a lot of people know Cathelco now for Cathelco and press current systems. And at that time Cathelco decided they would buy the yard, and I still see it to this day as they wanted an introduction to the CalMac fleet to basically change and introduce their systems. So the easiest way for them to do it was to have a ship repair facility. So Cathelco took the yard over, and they ran it for a period of time, up until about 1999, 1999, and then they decided that they were pulling out, there wasn't enough profit to be made. The truth of the matter was that they had entered the marketplace and they had no requirement for ship repair. So about a year before that, I'd started up my own business doing little jobs on sort of small boats and stuff like that. So I decided that what I would do is I would leave and set up my own. So I left and set up my own. I get some redundancy money, not a lot. Set up my business, and at that particular time we'd been working for a company called Mohiba Marine, who were doing some dredging works at Ayr Harbour. So I went down and met with them and said, look, I'm on my own now, working. Well, that's good. I've got a contract for you, tank cleaning. So literally within a few days of starting up my own, I'd been awarded a contract for £10,000 for cleaning 4 mud tanks. But I had no gear, I had no money, I had nothing.
There goes the 10 grand.
So I borrowed a van, I got people that I knew, got them in, we got the job done, got paid, managed to buy the van. Then I started doing work for, at the time it was Corey Towage, so I was travelling up and down, and then I had other contracts. People got to know what you were doing, so you were offered contracts for voyage repairs, going out on the ships. It was great, built up a good squad of guys, and I thought, Troon, yeah, lying dormant, nobody's using it. I could go in and open that back up. So I went back and I spoke to Associated British Ports at the time who run the port of Troon. And they were doing a lot of timber link work, so Taylor & Taylor had a ship, needed a dry dock. We came to an agreement with Associated British Ports. I would lease Troon. So
when was this?
This was in the year 2000.
Right.
So I leased Troon off Associated British Ports, took in 7 ships over a period of 18 months, and then I was given the opportunity to go to China in 2003, just after the SARS outbreak, to become an owner's representative. And it was something that I'd always wanted to do, and people said to me at the time, you're turning your back on Troon.
Right.
Well, I'm sorry, but I've got to move on, that's what I want to do. So
did you leave the business running then, or did?
Well, I pulled out the business,
right.
And at that point, maybe about a year after that, Garvel, Dales Marine,
yep.
they still run the dock to this day.
Yep.
So, you know, if I'd done things differently, could I still have been there? Yeah, possibly. But there was a lot of restrictions in that dock. The maximum draft of vessel, the beam, the length, it couldn't accommodate the vessels that I wanted to do in a longer term. It was more like an overflow dock.
Yep.
For
what size is it?
it can take vessels maximum draft of 4.2 to 4.3, sort of maybe a 14 metre beam,
right.
15 metre beam. So there was a few restrictions on it. So I was pleased, just left it behind. I'd brought it back to life again. I'd installed pumps, power supplies in, and done that. So that gave me the opportunity to go to China, which you know, I enjoyed my time there, being the only Westerner in the province and getting things done.
Did your wife go with you?
No,
No.
I left him behind. So literally.
I wasn't sure if your son smoked Mandarin or Cantonese.
No, they came out to visit me,
Yeah.
you know, which and I come back on a regular basis. But no, it was a single status contract, so that was what I done. So, you know, China, moved on from China, as I said, went China, Greece, and then into the renewable sector. Well, before that, I went to the Bahamas to work in Grand Bahama Shipyard.
It's a wee bit warmer than right now, isn't
A
it?
wee bit warmer.
I'm literally shivering here.
No,
So
again, that was a good experience. You know, two floating docks, great place to work, great climate, but very hot. So, was there for a period of time. Came back to the UK.
What was there any projects of note when you were out there?
Well, we done one sort of major cruise ship where we were installing more cabins up on one of the higher decks, and we had to put additional sponsons on the underside. So yeah, it was a good variety of work, because they done offshore vessels, they done cruise ships, but cruise ships was a speciality.
Yeah.
That's what they were good at. And you had time constraints. You've got 20 days, you've got 30 days, and that was it. The passengers were coming to join it. There was no, oh, we're running 4 days late.
Aye.
It doesn't work. So
Is it just a case of throwing bodies at it?
well, at that time I was there was maybe 1,000 people there.
Right.
And the guys worked 7 days a week. Yeah, that was it. 7 days a week, 12-hour shifts, day shift, night shift. We had every nationality. We had people from Bulgaria, Romania, Mexico, the Philippines, Canada, all over.
Yeah.
Just merging and working in there. And everybody worked and just gave it 100%. Cracking work ethic, and it was good to see.
Good.
But I was glad, you know, when that period of time was by, I came back to the UK, and that gave me the chance to get into the renewable energy sector, which I enjoyed, but I was drawn back 7 years. That was long enough. And then from there, basically out to Nigeria, Calmac, and after that, I was working with a company who were based in London. They wanted me to spend more time in London. It wasn't working for me. So I've been working behind the scenes with the TS Queen Mary, and decided that, you know, I'll start my own business.
Yeah.
You know.
So you started in the Clyde, went away, back to
Yeah,
the Clyde.
I started on the Clyde government of 16, and 40 years later
you're
I
back.
returned. And
So see, obviously, where we are today, and the fact that obviously this was going to be a museum piece, and then obviously that changed, which is amazing. How does, so I said this to you earlier on, I can remember when I was 17 or 18 doing my advanced higher geography project, meant to meet the councillors, and they're talking about the redevelopment of the Clyde, and this dock was part of it, and it was all supposed to be like amazing in 10 years. So we're 22 years on, and it's you're now getting headway. How does that come about? So you're obviously involved with the charity, but then how does it come about that you can take on the dock?
It's a very, very easy question to answer.
Go for it.
Right. So to get the ship and put the ship back into service, commercial repair yards had quoted for the work.
Right.
And the quotes were coming in circa 12, 15 million.
Yeah.
There's a charity to get the ship and set it back to work. They could raise that. Yeah, it would take them a lot of time. So my involvement with the TS Queen Mary, sat down and done the exercise. If I had my own dry dock, and I don't charge the same commercial rates that other yards are charging, because venture capitalists want a return on their investment,
Yeah.
then I can do it a lot more cost effectively. Where I control the labour directly, where I've got control of the dry dock, where I've got all the subcontractors working for me that I know and that I trust. All of a sudden, that 12 to 15 million basically is down to 6.5.
Right.
So we've got the budget, we've got it down to that.
A wee bit of a saving then.
Just a slight bit of a saving. So what I've got to do then is I've got to find a dry dock. Now,
if you're looking for a job after this, then let me know.
So I started looking for a dry dock. Now I'd been in these dry docks in '86, and dry docks are sitting there. What's happening with them? Right. Let's go and meet with New City Vision. Let's meet with Harry O'Donnell. Harry, would it be possible to lease your dry dock? Dry dock number 1. We need to see if it fits in with the whole master plan for the site. Well, can you share the master plan? Yeah. So he shared the master plan, what his plans were for the future. And he had put a number of proposals into the council, and the council had not looked upon them favourably over the years. And given the fact that the site had been derelict for 35 years, what I was proposing was music to Harry's ears. I said, and the council were looking upon that favourably. So the whole sort of landscape was changing. So in 2020, I come down and I emptied the dock and done a feasibility study, the condition of the dock, condition of the dry dock gate. I had to do that before I would agree any terms of lease or operating licences to make sure it was feasible and achievable to do it.
So when was the last time that the gate, the dock was empty then?
Well, I emptied it so in 2020.
Before that,
it was 87.
Right. So for what, 13 years or whatever.
30 odd years.
30 odd, sorry. For 30 odd years, that's
the gate's never
happened.
moved.
Right.
But I don't have any concerns with the gate because the gate was actually replaced in early 1960s by Sir William Arrow.
Right.
And it's a caisson gate, so all that's holding that gate in place is basically water, and there's silt, a build up of silt at the back.
Right.
So once that silt's removed from the back of the gate and the gate is pumped out clear of water, that gate will float to the surface. So the gate will operate. There's no question about the gate not operating. If it been a sliding gate, like in dock number 2 or dock number 3, it could be slightly more challenging, but don't have any concerns. And that was one of the reasons that we emptied the dock back then. Spent a week doing it. Then went into negotiations with New City Vision to secure the operating licence for the dock. Got all that in place. Then there's the Glasgow City Council would apply for a change of use from derelict status to operational dry dock again, which is now in place.
Brilliant.
So we're getting the dock ready for the TS Queen Mary. Now, we plan to start works in the dry dock again and start draining it within the next month. Now, if another commercial vessel comes along and is looking for a dry dock, that will be available to them. But our goal is to have the TS Queen Mary in the dry dock in 2024.
Right. Brilliant. And then, so obviously the TS Queen Mary, you're basically, so obviously you took us round earlier on, and this might be one of the last times that people can see the teak and whatnot, which is on its way out. So there's a lot involved in obviously the project, but we don't need to go into crazy depth, but can you talk to us about what you're doing with the project? Yeah. What's going on?
Our stage one, or what we call it our stage one. Stage one was for a period of 52 weeks, and that started in June this year. It'll end in June 2024, and our aim is to remove the teak deck from the boat deck, which is above us, and the prom deck. We've got to remove it because it doesn't meet with class rules, class being Bureau Veritas. So we're removing the teak timber decks and we're replacing them with 8mm steel decks.
Right.
So in that 1 year period, we will remove all the teak from the boat deck and the prom deck and replace them with 8mm steel, and we'll also replace underdeck stiffeners, we'll replace damaged steel work and weigh of that. So we'll do a lot of work. Everything that can be done above the wind and water line, we'll do it. But there is a massive piece of work to be done as you come into dry dock.
Mm. And in terms of obviously the you're saying earlier on about the deck, so obviously the way the teak that was in, that's in compression, just helps obviously the stability of the ship. What's the process for replacing it?
Oh, the teak, the compressive strength of the teak is far greater than steel, and because the teak runs longitudinally along the ship, that has a massive contribution towards the ship's structural integrity and strength. So when we're taking the teak off, there's only a certain amount of teak that we can take off and replace with steel. We couldn't just go and lift the whole deck and then do it with steel. It's a historic ship, we've got to do it sympathetically.
Right. And how's that going so far? What have you?
It's going well. We've done 55% of the boat deck steelwork. 55% of that's been done. So that will be finished end of February. And whilst that's ongoing, we're due to start on the prom deck first week in February.
Cool. And where are we right now then?
Right now, at this moment in time, we are sitting on the prom deck.
As in, but what area what will this be?
No, sorry, this is we're on the main deck. This will be the fifth lounge, which will be a multifunctional space. Right. Weddings, corporate events, conferences, small conferences. That's where we're sitting just now.
Right. And what was this before then?
Again, same. It was just a space where people could sit.
First class, second class?
No, we're actually sitting in the steerage class at the moment, right. And you can see in the marks on the deck there, if we go forward of that, they were into first class. So we at the moment are sitting in the steerage class.
Right, there you go. Well, it's better than normal for me. So how would they have separated it back then? What was it? Did you take this part out? Or was
that had been taken out before ship went to London, because she spent a lot of time in London with Bass Charrington. There would have been a set of sort of cantilever gates, similar to you would get in an old style lift, and that was the segregation area between segregate first and steerage class. Right,
brilliant. And are you putting the second class toilets and the first class toilets in? Or?
No, unfortunately, it's going to be male and female. No, when the ship was operating a class system, that's the way it was then.
Yeah.
Would you do it now? No, it was done then. So. That's part of the history of the ship. Right. That's what people remember about the ship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in terms of obviously this vessel, and it's a 90-year-old vessel, 90 in 2 weeks' time as we record?
She was launched on the 31st of March 1933, so she's actually had her 90th birthday, but this is her 90th year, so she's a birthday every day.
Right, okay, right, fair enough. And in terms of obviously we've walked around and there's so much of the original steelwork, and you're keeping as much as you can, obviously. In terms of vessels that you've worked on, where does this rank in, like, condition-wise, for given its age?
Well, I would say that the steel that we're seeing in a lot of areas on this ship now, 90-year-old steel, is in very, very good condition. I've worked in ships that are 20 years old, that some of the steel is actually in a worse condition than what we're seeing here. And that's testament to what, was made in Britain back in 1933.
And the quality of the materials.
The quality of the materials, the quality of the workmanship, it was first class.
And it's definitely, it's gone back into service as well. Then it's
gone back into service. It will go back into service. It'll apply its trade on its normal routes. It'll do the royal route, but she will also go out on private charter, because she will need to go into private charter to enable it to pay her way.
Yeah.
It's an expensive ship to run. You've got crewing costs, you've got fuel costs. All these things mount up, so she will need to go in private charter.
And to obviously get it back into service, because it was a museum piece essentially, what changes do you need to make? Is there anything?
Well, because you're working with both flag, MCA, class, Bureau Veritas, legislation's there to keep people safe at sea, make sure. So for all the structural issues, we're going through the process with class, we're going through class approval. Some new ship rules have been adopted and we're having to adopt and embrace them. Other items that we're looking at, as long as we replace like for like. So we've got a very, very good naval architect, we've got a good relationship with class. Flag, you're looking at compliance issues, you're looking at fire regulations, you're looking at even glass that we're having to, the windows that we're having to replace. in way of the MES system has to be fire rated.
Right.
Wasn't fire rated in the past, but we need that now. Escape routes. So whilst it's an old ship, we will be fully compliant.
And so earlier on you'd showed us, like, obviously below where we are, so the deck below, and when it was in London, obviously to basically they put concrete in it for the ballast to get under the bridges.
Yeah.
So obviously that all needs to come out. Is that just it must be an easy job, to be fair? That must have taken up a big chunk of the 6 million.
Well, it's if you say it fast, it sounds easy, but the ship's 76 metres is overall length, and we're going to be cutting a section 25 metres out the hull.
Right.
So we're going to take a third of the ship out because it's filled with concrete, and we'll replace that. But that gives us a great opportunity when we build the new double bottom here in Govan, that we can then ensure that we've got capacity to store marine gas oil and fresh water within that new double bottom unit. And it also allows us to build the foundations for the new machinery that's going in.
Right.
So it's a double-edged sword. It'll work well.
And are you keeping any of the original, like the shaft?
Yeah, well, the shafts, there's 3 original shafts. It's a triple screw, so there's 3 shafts in the ship. The shafts are approximately 76 foot long, and we would like to use the original shafts because we're keeping the same shaft line, obviously. So we've cut a section off one of the shafts and we sent it away for mechanical and chemical analysis to identify the carbon content within it. So now that we've established that information and passed that to Bureau Veritas, they can now determine whether we will be able to run with these shafts. We're using up to type B props. They'll, electric drive motors, so we can, increase or decrease the amount of torque. So from the work we've done so far, we know exactly how much torque we can put through each shaft. Right.
And obviously, because it's a charity, what fundraising event or what fundraising methods are they using? How are they getting? If someone, say for example, if someone's listening to this and they were like, I'd love to get involved, or I'd love to put some money in, or what can they do?
There's the charity have got their own website, and they're very, very accommodating. There's a number of large ticket items on the ship. If we take one, the funnels. So you try to raise sponsorship for the funnels. You're looking for somebody to put their name to the funnels. BAE Systems are going to donate the new wheelhouse bridge unit. They're building that, their apprentices are building that, and they'll deliver that to the ship.
On the Clyde?
Yeah. built in Govan. There's a company down south who are donating the 2 masts. That's a donation of about £80,000.
Wow.
Sea King Electrical have donated to date about £100,000 worth of detailed electrical design.
Wow.
Shield Marine have donated time to look at, because they're doing their insulation, etc. They're looking at the fire protection plan. So there's a lot of companies are donating very, very generous gifts.
Yeah.
So we just need to keep that momentum going. The windows, it's going to cost £250,000 to replace the windows. So the charity are selling the windows, for a standard window on this deck. £1,000 would allow you to have your name etched on the window, your company name, and it's there forever.
Yeah.
The bollards, the capstans, we're looking for individual sponsors for a capstan, so that we can then overhaul that capstan and allow it to run and be powered by electro-hydraulic. Bit of work in that, but then somebody's name or family name or company name goes onto that capstan. The same with the fairleads. Every area of the ship that we can possibly get the charity to sell to somebody, we'll do it.
Yeah. How many windows are there?
221 windows in total at the moment.
At the moment?
That excludes the windows in the wheelhouse and bridge.
Right. Right, okay. So you won't be able to, or will you be able to sponsor them? Or?
Yeah.
Well, for an increased price, of course.
Yes.
Naturally.
And another way that the charity are raising money is all the teak deck that we're lifting, we're upcycling it. I started off doing some small bespoke projects with it, making wine bottle holders, coasters, and the demand has grown such that we've now got a local manufacturer, Stephen at 345 Furniture. He's now going to start mass producing these gifts that the charity can sell through their website.
Right. That's actually So in terms of obviously jumping away from the vessel at the moment, but it takes in both the vessel and the dock. This can only be a massive thing for Govan, for the local area, for different businesses that used to obviously be on the Clyde or just off the Clyde and support it. How much, when you're doing obviously this project and then going ahead and when it becomes a commercial dock, how much work is going to come locally?
Well, our aim is to create long-term sustainable employment within the ship repair facility. But even if you look at what's planned for the whole site, and you look at the building of the houses, that creates employment.
Yeah.
The employment, the guys that are building the houses, they'll go to the Dry Docks Cafe, they'll buy their lunch. You know, they'll go to the shop next door, and they'll buy the convenience store, they'll buy from him. So it generates revenue for local businesses. But on the other side, you've got an awful lot of, you've got engineering businesses, you've got welding and fabrication companies, all in this local area, and they can benefit and will benefit from this when returned to a commercial ship repair operation.
Amazing. You can see how obviously it's going to benefit not just obviously the vessel itself and the historical value for people going ahead, but one thing, talking about historical value, we always like to put in the podcast, and we always like to ask people is their first memory of a ship. So for me it was a Waverley, which is just across the back. But for you, obviously your dad was a shipwright. What's your first memory of a vessel or being on a vessel or anything?
My first memory, my sort of lasting memory, was taking a holiday with my family and going over to Isle of Man, because Isle of Man boat, as we called it, used to run from Ardrossan.
Right.
So you'd the Isle of Man boat, you'd the Irish boats all run at Ardrossan. So I spent a lot of time at Ardrossan Harbour. So I would see the Arn ferry, I would see the Irish ferry, I would see my neighbour worked in the Irish ferry. So growing up as a young boy, my trip over to Isle of Man was my sort of first and my lasting memory of ships, and that's what I think has stuck with me.
Right. Can you remember the vessel's name or anything?
Yeah, it was Mona's Queen.
There you go.
Yeah.
Queen.
And my dad, he actually was working, that was built in Troon, believe it or not. And he done the handrail, he was part of the team that done the handrail system on it.
Right.
All out of teak.
Right. Oh, there you go. You got some more. Follow them if you want to go for it. Yeah. Brilliant. Well, Peter, absolutely brilliant to have you on, and thank you for this is incredible, the access you've gave us and allowing us to take us round. But
no, I appreciate that, Gordon. Thank you very much. Cheers then. Thanks for coming down. Thank you.